If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. The Reckoning is a British television drama miniseries about the British media personality and sexual offender Jimmy Savile, with Steve Coogan portraying Savile. The series generated controversy during its production and was first broadcast on BBC One in October of 2023, after originally being scheduled to be broadcast in 2022. It received mixed reviews from critics, with praise, though, for Coogan's portrayal of Savile. The 4-hour-long episodes chronicle the life of Jimmy Savile, who was one of the best-known radio and television personalities in Britain for much of his life. After his death in 2011, it emerged that he'd been a prolific predator and sexual offender. The series covers Savile's upbringing, career and sexual offences. 4 survivors of Jimmy Savile's abuse appear in the series, speaking at the beginning and the end of each episode. The production was announced in October 2020 and was criticised before filming was underway. Richard Morrison, writing in The Times, stated that it was commissioned by the BBC, the corporation that was accused of turning a blind eye to Jimmy Savile's crimes. He would say it felt less an act of contrition than of exploitation. Similarly, Pragya Agarwal, writing in The Independent, stated, "It also feels insidiously callous and thoughtless that an organisation that played a role in glorifying a sex offender and profiting from him, the BBC I mean, while covering up his actions for many decades, are once again capitalising on his brand and the fascination that viewers have of the monsters and true crime." Ben Lawrence, writing in the Daily Telegraph, said victims deserved better than the knee-jerk hysteria that had surfaced about The Reckoning, and that the question is not whether we should make a drama like The Reckoning, but how we do so. In September of 2021, Steve Coogan was cast as Jimmy Savile. Coogan, who had previously voiced Jimmy Savile on the satirical puppet show The Splitting Image, said the decision to play Savile was not one I took lightly, but I felt that writer Neil McCare's script tackled a horrific story which, however harrowing, needs to be told. Work on the production started in October of 2021 and included filming location scenes in northwest England and North Wales. In light of the controversy surrounding the series and the events regarding the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the drama was first expected to be broadcast by the BBC in 2022, before being pushed back to 2024 and then later brought forward to 2023. At the time, a source said the 4-part drama is being edited in such a meticulous and careful way so as not to create more pain and suffering for Jimmy Savile's victims. The series went to air on BBC One from the 9th of October, with all episodes available on iPlayer from the same date. The programme was presented as being partly fictionalised, with some characters and events created for dramatic purposes. Several scenes have been described in The Telegraph as embellished or false. In the subplot in Episode 2, Jimmy Savile, after hosting an edition of Top of the Pops, rapes a young girl who subsequently kills herself with an overdose of pills. This incident is based on the suicide in 1971 of 15-year-old Claire McAlpin, who claimed to have been sexually abused by 2 disc jockeys. It is unclear whether Jimmy Savile was one of those abusers. Just a quick background about Jimmy Savile. Sir James Wilson Vincent Savile was born on October 31st, 1926 and died on October 29th, 2011. He was an English media personality and DJ. He hosted the BBC shows Top of the Pops and Jim Will Fix It. During his lifetime, Savile was known in the United Kingdom for his eccentric image and charitable work. After his death, hundreds of allegations of sexual abuse made against him were investigated, leading the police to conclude that he had been a predatory sexual offender and possibly one of Britain's most prolific. There had been allegations during his lifetime, but they were dismissed and accusers ignored or disbelieved them. Savile took legal action against some of the accusers even. As a teenager during the Second World War, Jimmy Savile worked in coal mines as a Bevan boy and reportedly sustained spinal injuries. He began a career playing records and later managing dance halls. In his late 20s, he was a professional wrestler. His media career started as a disc jockey at Radio Luxembourg in 1958 and Tyne Teens Television in 1960. From 1964 to 1988, Savile was a regular presenter on the BBC music show Top of the Pops, also co-presenting the last edition in 2006. In 1986, he began hosting his own radio shows for Radio 1, broadcasting until 1987. From 1975 to 1994, he presented Jim Will Fix It, an early Saturday evening television program which arranged for the wishes of viewers, mainly children, to come true. During his lifetime, Jimmy Savile was known for fundraising and supporting various charities and hospitals. In particular, Stoke Manville Hospital and Aylesbury Leeds General Infirmary and Broadmoor Hospital in Berkshire. In 2009, he was described by The Guardian as a prodigious philanthropist and was honoured for his charity work. He was awarded an OBE in 1971 and then was knighted in 1990. Jimmy Savile was praised in his obituaries for his personal qualities and his work in raising an estimated £40 million for charities. Savile died from pneumonia on October 29, 2011. In October 2012, a year after his death, an ITV documentary examined the claims of sexual abuse by Jimmy Savile. This led to extensive media coverage and substantial and rapidly growing body of witness statements and sexual abuse claims, including accusations against public bodies for covering up or failure of duty. Scotland Yard launched Operation U-Tree, a criminal investigation into allegations of child sex abuse by Jimmy Savile spanning 6 decades, describing him as a predatory sex offender, and later stated that they were pursuing more than 400 lines of inquiry based on their own testimony of 300 potential victims via 14 police forces. The scandal had resulted in inquiries or reviews at the BBC, within the NHS, the Crown Prosecution Service, and the Department of Health. In June 2014, investigations into Jimmy Savile's activities at 28 NHS hospitals, including Leeds General Infirmary and Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, concluded that he had sexually assaulted staff and patients aged between 5 and 75 over several decades. As a result of the scandal, some of the honours that Jimmy Savile was awarded during his career were posthumously revoked, and episodes of the Top of the Pops presented by Savile are no longer repeated. The scandal was also featured on the Netflix documentary series Jimmy Savile, a British horror story. Now, how do you even begin to review a show like this? This is truly a complicated story, but it's a story that needs to be told. Look, to say Jimmy Savile was an absolutely evil man would be an understatement. The crimes that he got away with and committed over several decades are just astounding, shocking, and absolutely horrifying. He was friends with people like King Charles, Princess Diana, and even Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister in the 80s. People thought he was a saint, even encouraging him to host a show where, of course, he could be even closer to young children. The irony of this is not lost, as this man hid in plain sight, almost even alluding to his own crimes in public at times. Look now, we all know that Jimmy Savile was a criminal, a psychopath, and a paedophile. But for me, what truly stands out is how he got away with it all this time, being lauded as a hero within society, hiding behind his charitable crusades, and how the victims were never believed, how the BBC, the government, the whole of the UK basically let this man get away with constant sexual abuse and assault. It's absolutely mind-numbing, frustrating, and frankly, leaves you feeling somewhat bewildered. Steve Coogan is absolutely masterful in this role and deserves all the awards he could get. I can't imagine it was an easy role to take on, and Coogan himself said it wasn't, but the story needed to be told, and I couldn't agree more. The scenes in which he terrorizes, assaults or rapes girls, young women, and occasionally even young men at homes and clubs, in hospitals and anywhere, are handled very well and touchingly. This drama really invokes that particular terror so well, and really harkens on the moment when the man turns into a monster. It creates a lot of tension and really leaves you feeling somewhat uneasy, even though it never really shows you anything either. Coogan captures the mannerisms, the voice, the vibe entirely without ever veering anywhere near the character. He shows you how charming, how witty Jimmy could be, also while hiding that evil side and letting it slip through every now and again as his two personalities slide in between each other. Look, this is a harrowing and depressing show, but it will leave you enlightened. And I quite like the inclusion here of the brief testimonies from the real-life victims. This is a story that should serve to remind us that people like this walk amongst us every day, and that it really is the institutions that are to blame that let a man like this walk freely, allowing him to commit these evil, most heinous of acts. Savile deserved to be locked up many years ago, but it was through the likes of the NHS, the BBC, the royal family, and even Margaret Thatcher herself who kept him in the limelight and made him out to be a hero, and even knighted him for his ways. This is truly a tragic story, but the one that needs to be told to remind people that we should never let someone like this walk around freely and do such heinous and horrible things. Unfortunately, power and influence generally win over what's right and just. With its chillingly brilliant performance here by Steve Coogan, its harrowing script, an enlightening story of this cruel, horrific and horrendous man who was shielded throughout his lifetime, The Reckoning gets a 9 out of 10.